Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I have lots of plans going on. So anyways, all right, I will enough about St. Patrick's Day and my love for this week. But I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's staying healthy. I hope everybody's having a great start to their week. So let's jump into it. One quick exciting news for our group. If you have not heard the news, Mandy officially gave birth to a baby boy. Cole James Cotty was born on Saturday night. He came into the world a little sooner than expected, but both Mandy and Cole, and everybody's doing well. They got home yesterday from the hospital. But so just so you guys know, Mandy will be on maternity leave here for the next several months. So in the meantime, myself and Megan Casey will try and fill Mandy's shoes the best we can. So if there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Megan, as we are super stoked to welcome Cole into the KW family and super excited for Mandy and her husband, Andrew, as they welcome a new little boy into the world.
Hey, Charlie.
So if you have an opportunity to reach out and wish Mandy well, talked to her yesterday. She's doing great, but I just wanted to give the group a heads up as to if there's a little bit of a delayed reply, if you send something to her, she has some exciting news and she's going to be taking care of her family and being mom for a little bit. So just know
Charlie,
that Megan and I are here in the background to help you.
I recognize that look on Cole's face. That's 50
sure.
grand over and no contingencies, and we didn't get it. What the what?
So they're doing well. All right, one other thing. A lot of people have been asking questions. It's tax time, right? March 15th was the corporate filing deadline. April 15th is the personal filing deadline. If you have any questions as it relates to any reports, your 1099s, expenses, various things like that, if you need help, need support, please reach out to Jen Turner. She is here to answer and be your resource for you as it relates to anything you may need financially. Her email is down below, jen.turner@kw.com. As you are looking to fill out your taxes or financial returns, Jen is here to support you. So if you missed what came out in January and February, don't hesitate to reach out to Jen. She is here to support you on that. Next up, one other thing is a follow-up item. March 5th, I believe, was a Friday, 2-3 weeks ago. We hosted a social equity task force in the North Shore office. There was a lot of great discussion items that came from it, a ton of items. And one of the first things that we really wanted to do and recognize is so many of us work with an excellent, diverse pool of vendors, right? And what we want to do is really kind of conglomerate a group of excellent vendors, whether it be LGBTQ vendors, whether it be minority vendors, whoever, Spanish-speaking vendors, multilingual vendors, whatever it may be. We want to support a diverse pool of vendors. So if you're working with someone who you think is absolutely phenomenal, and that you would like us to help support or help get introduced to our group of people, please shoot a note to frontdesk972@kw.com. Sydney is in the background working to consolidate the recommendations that so many people have already sent in. So thank you for those that have already sent it in. And know this too, moving forward, we have identified a small group of people that are going to be leading this task force moving forward to ensure that we're making progressive steps as an equitable, diverse business partner for you guys and partner for your clients. And so be on the lookout for more information as this task force really comes together to create action items that we can implement within our business and to support you and to support your clients as well. So in the meantime, if you have excellent vendors that you'd like us to support, please shoot a note to Sydney at the front desk 972@kw.com, and we will make sure we get them on the list. Awesome. All right. So since Mandy's gone, I'm taking over upcoming training and events this week. A couple things to point out on the calendar. First up, this week, tomorrow on St. Patrick's Day, out in the Lake Country office, we are hosting a KW Young Professionals Lunch and Learn. We have a great panel of speakers between Jonathan Newby, Amanda Schroeder, Will Stale, talking about how they entered the business at such a young age and how they're having massive success now, how to separate yourself from the friend zone, so many other various ways in which young people can get started in this business and learn from those who've built an incredible foundation in this business. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Amanda. Amanda, what do we got coming over this morning at 10:30 for launch coaching?
Hey, everybody. So in launch today, we're going to talk about how you can best serve your clients in this crazy market all around the showings. So not just how you walk through a house with them, but also what you're doing leading up to that, what you're doing following that, and how you're leading that into potentially writing a very strong offer in this very competitive market. So we'll talk about all those important pieces that will get you to that point and how much that makes a difference in this market and in competition.
Beautiful.
We'll see you at
Schroeder,
10:30.
thank you. Unfortunately, J9 actually has an incredible listing appointment this morning, so I'm going to pitch hers for Thursday. These guys her and Connie are talking about competitive offers, so they're going to follow up what Amanda's talking about this morning, and they're going to look at comparables to offers that they have reviewed lately to help you identify things that make an offer really strong and competitive. And then within the lead generation corner, they're going to talk about pop buys and how do you effectively create pop buys as a part of your lead generation tactics to build and farm your database. So that's coming up this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, some great stuff. And then next week is a little bit lighter because so many of the schools across southeastern Wisconsin are on spring break. So for those of you who are traveling later this week and into next week, I hope you're either going somewhere warm or somewhere with a ton of snow. Guys, travel safe on your spring break destinations next week. One other thing I wanted to point out, because I think our group is completely underutilizing this resource, and I don't think we talk about it enough. But every either Sunday or Monday, you get an email from either Megan Casey or Julia Ola with this week at KW. So this week, March 15th to the 19th, and you can see here are the things that we're doing locally, right, to support you guys and provide you local insights. What you'll see on the left that I would really encourage you guys to dig into is all the live stream trainings that Keller Williams International is offering you through KW Connect. And note that when these guys send this out, everything has a hyperlink to it so you can jump into it. So for example, Monday morning at 10:30 a.m., they talked about handle seller objections with success. At noon, they talked about gain client trust with strong listing presentations. I mean, there is some incredible content here that I don't think our group is taking advantage of. And it really is a supplement to what we're offering here locally. Like, for example, so many people have had the opportunity to listen from Brady Sandoval, the KW luxury specialist. Every Friday at noon, they have the luxury learning series where they're bringing in various brands to talk about client experience and client services. So guys, I would encourage you to pay attention to these, the once a week emails that come from both Megan and Julia that showcase the live streams and webinars that are available through KW Connect, because there is some incredible content here that I think can help you benefit you and your business and your education journey. Cool. All right, Lindsay Brannick, over to you for Tech Tuesdays. What do we got? Talking all about custom newsletters.
Yeah, so today it's all within Smart Plan. So you're using a combination of creating that email template. There's over 70 different templates in those email campaign templates that you see in the campaign section, but you're not even going to go into campaigns. You're going to do it all through creating a custom Smart Plan essentially. And so there are email templates that have content already in there. There are templates where you just have the layout and then you can customize it fully. So my goal today, if you attend today's tech workshop, is to have this set up and ready to go. And so we're going to go through exactly how to set this up, how you're going to add those steps in there, and how you're going to create and customize that email. And so this is just the screen that you're going to see when you're creating it. So you're going to customize, the task, the delay, where do you want to set the delays in there for getting that reminder to go in monthly, edit that email, and then have it sent out automatically after that. And so that's all done within Smart Plans. Once you have it set up, you just go in there, plug in some new content monthly. Maybe you have some of the similar content. You can grab content from other sources, totally up to you. You can make this your own, which is the great part of it. And so today's tech workshop is actually in Wauwatosa again. So on Innovation Drive, it's at 1 o'clock today. This is just example of the email template. So we're going to go through all of this and more in detail. So again, today, 1 o'clock in Wauwatosa. And if you guys have any questions, if you can't make it, just reach out to me. I'm happy to sit down one-on-one and go through this with you guys.
Perfect. Newsletters, automation, automation, automation. It's a great way to learn. If you need to set up a one-on-one with Lindsay, shoot her a note. She loves setting up one-on-ones with you guys, and note that she's out in Toasted today at 1 o'clock as a workshop to help you build your newsletters. All right. Now I'm actually turning over to Steph Kennard. And guys, what I would ask of you is that you pay really close attention across this next segment. There is a lot of detail here that Steph's going to review all around helping you mitigate liability with your licenses and around many things that we've seen and things that are causing our market and agents to do different wonky things, right? So Steph's job is to protect you and to protect your license. So Steph, I'm going to flip it over to you with your compliance updates to help these guys mitigate their liability.
Thank you. Good morning, guys. So just going through a few things today, just a housekeeping item with delayed listing forms in MLS. We're going to do a refresher on multiple representation and how to indicate agency on the offer to purchase. And then just another reminder to agents who want to write on their own purchases. So next slide, Charlie. With delayed listing forms in MLS, just a reminder that when your listings are in delayed, that you must load the delayed listing form with your listing contracts. So you must combine the two forms before uploading to MLS. MLS has this requirement. Over the last several weeks, we've had just a influx of emails from MLS alerting us that the delayed forms have not been loaded. So please, please, please make sure that you are combining the two forms, the delayed listing form and your listing contract, and uploading that to MLS. Next slide, Charlie. And then we just wanted to go and do a refresher on multiple representation and indicating agency and how to indicate agency on your offers to purchase. So again, the definition of multiple representation. Multiple representation exists if a firm has an agency agreement with more than one client who is a party in the same transaction. So this is true whether you are an individual agent who has both the buyer and seller client, but most commonly when the firm has both the seller client and the buyer client. Next slide, Charlie. So all buyer and seller clients of the firm must consent to multiple representation through one of three ways. So multiple representation with designated agency, and we'll go through all of these. Multiple representation without designated agency, which is a neutral approach, or a complete rejection of multiple representation altogether. Multiple representation with designated agency. This is definitely the most common. This is what we are hoping is happening in our marketplace. Designated agency means that different agents within the firm will negotiate on behalf of each client. So for example, Joan Reed has a buyer client who is going to write on a listing of another Keller Williams listing. So we'll say Kimmy Herbert's listing. Again, Joan Reed has the buyer client and she's going to write on a listing of Kimmy Herbert's. This is the most beneficial approach for our clients. This means that they get full brokerage services. And then beyond that, they get the benefit of agents being able to negotiate on their behalf and offering advice, which is the reason why they are hiring us to begin with. If you are an agent who brings a seller client and a buyer client together, and the clients wish to have designated agency, you must find another agent to help in the transaction and assign them to either the buyer or the seller. Represent her buyer or her seller in this transaction. In both cases, on the offer to purchase, the agency that will be indicated will be buyer of. All right, multiple representation without designated agency. So without designated agency means that the same firm may represent both clients and provide brokerage services, but are prohibited from offering advice and giving opinions to the client. So the agents or agent are acting as a neutral party in this case. So under this neutral approach, the same agent may represent both the seller and the buyer client. On the offer to purchase, you will indicate that you are the agent of both the buyer and the seller. And then just beyond this, if the client authorizes this option, this means that the other client in the transaction must also consent to this, whether you as an individual agent are working with both clients or if the client is working with another KW agent. So an amendment to the listing contract or the buyer agency contract may be needed for this. All right, and then complete rejection of multiple representation. The firm may not provide brokerage services to more than one client in the transaction at all. So what the significance for our clients in this is, as a seller, they have completely eliminated the KW buyer client pool. A KW buyer could be a customer in the transaction, but any Keller Williams buyer clients may not write on a KW listing. Again, not beneficial for our sellers. As a buyer, if they have eliminated Next slide, Charlie. And then just some additional comments on multiple representation. I just want to point out that it's definitely more common for a KW buyer client to make an offer on another KW agent's listing or a seller client to secure another KW agent's buyer than it would be to quote unquote double pop, meaning bringing you as the individual agent, bringing both sides. So if you find yourself securing both clients, your listing and buyer agency contracts may be amended later. It's definitely not beneficial to guide your clients to choose multiple representation without designated agent right off the bat in the hopes that you will bring both parties together and act neutral. So as we're guiding our clients when we're going through multiple representation sections on our listing contracts and on our buyer agency contracts, we definitely want to guide them to be choosing designated agency, multiple representation with designated agency. We want to give the full scope of our brokerage services and the ability to give advice and act on their behalf. So, and then also I wanted to say that if you are on a team, make sure that you check with your team leaders on their policies regarding multiple representation. Some may prefer that all clients have the benefit of negotiation and advice and not want any agent acting as a neutral party. So in the case of a team member on, I'll say JSG, on J Schmidt Group, if Janine has the opportunity to bring both the seller and the buyer together, they might want to have Jay step in and either represent the seller or the buyer in that regard, and making sure that their clients are receiving the full benefit of negotiation and advice. And then, as always, please check in with Kimmy, Joan, or I if there are questions on this. This is definitely an area where if you are seasoned, if it doesn't come up very often, you might have a question on it. So please, again, we're here for you. All right, and then agents writing on your own purchase. So just a reminder on this. So if you are an agent who wants to write on a purchase for yourself, the offer to purchase contract may be written in one of two ways. You may either designate an agent to write the contract for you and act as your buyer's agent. So again, agent of buyer will be indicated on the offer to purchase. And then further, making sure that you're disclosing in the additional provisions that the buyer is a licensed real estate agent in the state of Wisconsin. Or two, you may act as the principal in the transaction and write the offer to purchase yourself. In this case, all agency options on lines 1 and 2 of the offer to purchase will be stricken. You are acting as a principal in this case. So you're going to disclose that you're a licensed agent in the additional provisions, of course, and then you're going to include verbiage on the commission. So you'll find this language in our clause library under the licensee as principal purchaser. And I'm just going to read how this goes. So all parties understand buyer is a Wisconsin real estate license with Keller Williams Realty and consent to buyer purchasing the property for residential or investment purposes. You're going to strike one. And that he or she may realize a profit from subsequent sale. Seller is aware that buyer will be paid a portion of the brokerage commission on this transaction or an incentive fee and consents to such payment. We must include this verbiage when we are acting as a principal in the transaction. So again, this is found in our clause library in zip forms. If you have any questions on that, please, again, just see Kimmy, Joni, or myself. Any questions?
Well, hey, two quick follow-up questions for you, Steph. First, for a listing agent that also has the buyer, we are still talking option number 1, correct? And we just need to explain to the buyer that we are working on behalf of the lister. Is that accurate?
So for a listing agent that also has the buyer, we are still talking option number 1. So John, if you are acting as if you are securing a listing and you would have your seller indicate designated agency. If you happen to bring that buyer in and you want to, and both parties, both buyer and seller, agree for you to act as a neutral party, then you're going to amend your listing contract, and then from there act as multiple representation without designated agency and act as a neutral party. I just think, again, the likelihood of another Keller Williams agent bringing that buyer versus you yourself bringing that own buyer is much higher. So I would suggest that you would amend your listing contracts later or your buyer agency contracts later so that you can act as a neutral party in the transaction. Does that make sense?
Steph, one other follow-up question. If agents are writing on behalf of an LLC that they are a member of, they need to disclose their membership in the additional provisions as well, correct?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Cool. Guys, I know it was a ton of stuff. It's a lot of what I would call thick stuff as it relates to compliance this week. But the reason why we brought this up and we're bringing in any topic that we bring up from a compliance standpoint is stuff that we're seeing on an actual basis. So this is actual things that we are seeing or feeling in the field that we need to bring awareness or attention to drive education around the topics. So again, multiple representation of agency, as well as how you disclose when you're making purchases, whether it's for yourself personally or for an investment, is multiple things that we have seen so far in the first quarter, and we need to make sure that we're addressing, because as a way, in both scenarios, there's high levels of liability in both of these. And so what we're trying to do is ensure that we're protecting your fiduciary and protecting your license and your ability to earn an income. So that's why we bring it up. Steph, thank you for jumping on and providing this insight. Cool. All right, here we go. We're jumping back into it. Yesterday, a bunch of us were on the WRA Residential Real Estate Summit, and we're very fortunate. Andy Hunt, who is the director of real estate at Marquette University, hosted a kind of panel kind of discussion. And what I wanted to do is give you the Cliff Notes recap to say either A, I missed it, what did I miss? Or B, I was on it, but what does it actually mean for me? And how do I leverage or utilize the information? And how is it relevant to me as a real estate agent in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? So I'm going to jump into it. First up, right away, they talked about the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And last year, they hosted this conference on March 23rd of 2020. And they had Dr. Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for the NAR, come on. And if you look at it, the Dow Jones Industrial Average really bottomed out almost on the exact day to when this conference was hosted last year. And they talked about the historical significance to that. And then they talked about how the significant historical significance to what the rebound was then, looking at to where the Dow Jones Industrial Average was as of yesterday, hitting almost 33,000 points. So, when you look at where we were and where we've gone, it's been an amazing V-shaped recovery, just as Dr. Lawrence Yun talked about last year in the past 12 months, looking at the recovery the economy has taken in the last 12 months since the impact of March 23rd. Here, the WRA and one of Marquette's economy professors jumped on and talked about employment and employment recovery. And what you look here is this is total monthly change in Wisconsin, total private employment, non-farm employment in the state of Wisconsin. And in the run up to January 2020, we were essentially at an economy in Wisconsin where we were pretty much at full employment. I'll show you here on the next slide. Full employment in the state of Wisconsin, or even in a national average, is right around 4% unemployment. So it means anybody who's looking for a job pretty much has a job. And what you could see here in the run up to where we were last spring, February, March, and then the peak being April. April last year in the private sector, there were 353,000 jobs that were lost in one single month. The backside to that is the recovery that we've seen leading up all the way to January of 2021 has been significant. We saw significant increases really mainly in June, where we saw 88,000, almost 89,000 new jobs that came into the private sector in the month of June of 2020. And the commentary around all of this, around employment and the recovery efforts, was despite the fact that we lost 353,000 jobs, there was a strong growth trend even going into January of 2021 of the economy recovering and people getting back to full employment. However, yet, as it stands today, we're still about 100,000 jobs less than where we were in January of 2020. So while the recovery has been strong and employment has been very robust in the last 6 to 9 months specifically, we're still about 100,000 jobs less than where we were in January of 2020. And so it's something that they say is, again, strong wins within the sales of the economy. And as it relates to the housing industry, the more employed workforce we have, the better off that we are in terms of, again, creating demand, liquidity, and people's financial ability to afford a home. So if we look at it really 1 year later, only being down about 100,000 jobs, considering 350,000 were lost in April of 2020, is really, really positive news in terms of the rebound and recovery efforts specifically the state of Wisconsin has seen here locally. When you look at Wisconsin versus U.S. unemployment rates, again, this is going all the way back to 2010. And then you can see here, obviously, the peak being in roughly April of 2020. At its peak, unemployment rates across the U.S. and across Wisconsin hit in April of 2020. It was 4.8%. Significant loss of jobs in the month of April of 2020. And again, you can see over the next 6 to 9 months, the incredible recovery that we've seen in Wisconsin. We've been very fortunate here in southeastern Wisconsin, where Wisconsin employers have really rebounded more at a faster pace than the national average. So again, remember, 4% is considered full employment within the economy. As of January of 2021, Wisconsin was sitting at 3.8%. So that's a very, very healthy recovery, very, very fast. Again, very, very good news for our industry. And then as you compare that against the national average of being at 6.3%, we're sitting in a very, very good place in the state of Wisconsin as it relates to the economic recovery efforts that we've been fortunate to see. Next up, I thought this was a very interesting slide, and they actually led with this, but I thought the other ones were more important in terms of historical perspective. But what you see here is going back to June of 2020 and then coming into February of 21. What you'll see here is lodging statistics and airline statistics they kind of separated people into two groups. One is millennials and one is traditionalists. And the impact of this is people really began really effective strategies, and Wisconsin's done a really nice job in terms of their vaccine rollout and getting and people vaccinated. What you can see here is really the uptick in traditionalist booking airfare in February of 21. And this is directly correlated to vaccine rollouts. So as we start to see the impact here, hopefully in May, where all adults over the age of 18 will be able to get the vaccination, you'll start to see an uptick here in airline bookings for millennials. And why is this important? It's discretionary income, right? And when people are spending discretionary income, it's a positive sign for our industry. And so showing this difference between the two age populations, and showing how discretionary income is being impacted with the vaccine rollout is very, very, again, very, very positive, very, very healthy. A lot of wind in our sails as it relates to our industry and discretionary income available. So they used airline and lodging because I believe that's the easiest to track. And this is Bank of America internal data as it relates to that. But very, very positive news, lots of wind in the sails as it relates to people's coming out as people begin to be vaccinated and knowing that older demographics are being vaccinated first, to see that they're spending discretionary incomes at this levels with vaccination rollouts. Again, very, very positive news for continued strong growth trends within the economy. Next up, this I thought was a very fascinating slide here. And this goes back to some of the conversations we've had around demographics and household informations. A couple months ago, we shared some information as it relates to what Professor Mark Eppley with the University of Wisconsin-Madison shared with us around the demographic trends within the data, and how millennials now are the largest labor force within the U.S. economy, and the average age of a first-time homebuyer is 31. And what you see here on the left is a chart that I thought was fascinating from yesterday. And I don't think he did a good enough job explaining this. The blue line here is the population growth ages 25 to 34. So going back to 2002, this is the population of individuals 25 to 34. And you can see this massive uptick as millennials came of age between the ages of 25 to 34, really in earnest beginning in 2008 and continuing, and hasn't quite peaked yet in 2018. Again, a lot of the demographic trends that we've talked about. What you find here in green, however, is the households headed by those individuals 25 to 34. So the commentary here is the population amongst this cohort of individuals has grown increasingly strong, and yet there is a significant gap in households within this cohort of 25 to 34. Again, if we look ahead, and how do I extrapolate this data from what we talked about last week around the profile of buyers in southeastern Wisconsin, knowing that 41% of buyers in 2020 were first-time home buyers, there's a significant gap, and there is a significant opportunity to help those individuals in the 25 to 34 old range get into households, because their population growth and household growth is lagging, and there's a gap there. So I view that very much as a opportunity for our industry. Now I'm going to jump over here. And again, these slides were up yesterday, but they went through them so fast, and I thought they did the group a disservice. So I wanted to touch on this. This slide, if you compare it to, then is looking at age demographics. So here is under 35, there's 25 to 44, there's 45 to 54. So again, looking at different cohorts of age groups. And what you're seeing here is the cohorts within these age groups based on, are they married with children? Are they married without children? Are they a single person? And then this is household growths, household growth. So what you're seeing is kind of a bell curve effect. Well, yes, we're talking a lot about first-time home buyers within this 25 to 44 cohort, again, playing off of this chart. Yes, there is a significant growth in households amongst this cohort. But what you're also seeing, and many of you have seen this in the competitive industry that we're in right now, is there is a significant growth in the cohort 65 and up. And 65, specifically 65 and up empty nesters. So what we have is, we have this incredible increase in demand, and we have two competing forces at play. We have the younger demographical people who are trying to get in as first-time home buyers, who are competing with empty nesters for the same level of inventory when inventory is down anywhere from 35 to 40%. So again, if you're looking at opportunities to secure organic growth for your business, the major cohort of demand that's driving a lot of the buyer activity is either younger demographics of the 25 to 35-year-old range, that's the first-time home buyer, or it's going to be your older demographic, which is the empty nester demographic above the age of 65, which are competing for the same inventory as the first-time home buyer. And then, so moving on, I thought that was a good slide as it relates to the follow-up from our conversation from last week around the demographic profiles of buyers and sellers in southeastern Wisconsin. And I'll include that again when Diana and I send out our weekly insights and resources email for you guys to compare this data from last week's data to put it all together for you. And then what they talked about a little bit is really, no surprise here. Last year in the state of Wisconsin, it was a tale of two halves, right? And what was happening is we were on a trend of a little bit of a decline in single family housing closed units. And what happened through the first half of the year. And then obviously everybody knows what happened. The back half of the year, there was extremely strong rebound. And so instead of having a decline, we were up, around 7% last year in the state of Wisconsin. So again, they talked about this being a tale of two halves. And I'm going to go into that a little bit further when I break down some of the data here in a second. And then here, they kind of summarized it in terms of the economy within the state of Wisconsin. How do you really break it down? It's really kind of two things. One, economic expansion is clearly already underway. When they looked at first quarter GDP so far, and they haven't announced this publicly yet, but first quarter GDP remains continued strong growth. And if they were going to look at, a recessionary period, the recessionary period really ended last summer of 2020. And because of all this, they continue to see that the Fed is committed to low interest rates. So, 10,000 foot view of the economy, it's continued expansion. And you're seeing this across the stock market and various other markets or macroeconomic factors that are telling us this. The housing market impacts, it's really the same thing that we've been talking about. Demand will remain strong, supply will remain limited. And due to this, you'll continue to see appreciation of home values in 2021. So that was kind of the cliff notes from yesterday's WRA conference as it relates to the economy and the state of the economy in southeastern Wisconsin. One of the things that I did want to update is Tom Larson, who is the chief lobbyist for the Wisconsin Realtors Association, gave three priorities for the upcoming state budget that are important to our industry that they are focusing on in terms of making sure that is included in the next state budget. And I thought it was very important. And these are good three little nuggets for you, especially as it relates to out-of-town buyers of, okay, what's going on in your industry and how is it impacting me in the state of Wisconsin? First, they're very much focused on helping alleviate the supply issue. Workforce housing is the number one priority of the WRA in enacting legislation to help alleviate supply issues. I'm going to show you a graph here after this that shows essentially new construction and multifamily startups are still 60% less than what they were at pre-08 levels. So we still have this major kink in the supply chain, and it's the number one priority for the WRA is focusing on workforce housing. Two was the availability of broadband infrastructure. Take it for granted for those of us here in southeastern Wisconsin, we have zero issue as it relates to broadband infrastructure. But for the rest of the state, or for those of you who own second homes up in northern Wisconsin, this is an issue. And up in those parts of the state, they estimate that there's a 25% impact on a property's values. And think about this, right? If you were going to go buy a second home, or if you're going to go buy a primary home, and the listing agent told you that you didn't have internet, would it change your perception or your ability or your interest level within the home? And for a lot of people, it does. So that's a big priority. That's the priority number two. And then the last one, which I had never really realized, I knew my property taxes were high, but I never knew why or what that looked like, is three, they're really focusing on property taxes within the state budget. Here's kind of some facts that they shared with us. In Wisconsin is one of the top 5 most expensive states in the entire United States as it relates to property taxes. Yet we are in the bottom half for sales tax. And what we have is this outsized reliance on property taxes for state revenues. And when we compare it against our peers in the Midwest, Wisconsin is the most dependent on state on property taxes for revenue across our peers in the Midwest. And so the WRA is helping propose some legislation and trying to impact some legislation for the state to become less reliant on property taxes and more reliant on things like sales tax and other revenue sources to help them find alternative methods for raising raising funds for the state of Wisconsin. So those were kind of the three main key points that the WRA is focusing on across legislative action items here within the next state budget in working with the current administration and legislative bodies. One thing I did want to point out, and I thought this was very interesting, is the follow-up to point number one as it relates to workforce housing and needing more supply. And this would be the last thing as it relates to the WRI Residential Real Estate Summit, is you can see here going back to 1994 all the way to 29, well, actually really they said all the way to today in early part of 2021. The blue line right here is lots created by subdivision plats, right? The orange line is single family building permits in the state of Wisconsin. And the green line is multi-family 5+ unit building permits across the state of Wisconsin. And you can see even, there was a great run up of building inventory up to about 08, and then obviously 08 hit, and there was a significant decrease. And while there is a little bit of an uptake, it's still down 60% from these levels here, which is just creating a major housing shortage across southeastern Wisconsin. So this is a big part of the WRA's efforts, is to help increase some of these lots created by subdivisions, single family building permits, and multifamily, and creating legislation that incentivizes this sort of activity. Cool. Next up, language of real estate, lore, broker reports and trends. So we were fortunate. We finished up the month of February. There was a little bit of delay in getting you this information, but I wanted to provide you some insight as to what is the industry telling us so far through the month of February. And there's something that I need you guys to pay attention to as it relates to the impact on your business, and probably something you're not thinking about because you're only thinking about riding the wave and the wind that's in your sails today. But as you think about lead metrics versus lag metrics, and again, I challenge you, how are you thinking about your leading activities that are going to be indicators of future successes of income? And I'll break this down for you here in a second, because I think that in the majority of the industry, lag metrics, everybody in the industry focuses on lag metrics, which is closed production, closed units, which ultimately leads to income. But none of that is leading metrics or activities leading to your future income, right? So as I challenge you to think about that, I need you to start thinking about planning ahead for 90 days. Because if we're 90 days out, we're really sitting here in June or July, right? So if you're thinking about what you're doing today, what you're doing today is going to show up in June, July, even potentially August. And so how are you activating your lead metrics or your lead activities to predicate your future income, right? So I'm going to pull back some interesting review of this, right? And here are the lead metrics. The lead metrics that I would be paying attention to across my business would be listings taken units and how many contracts have I been writing, and am I tracking this on a routine basis? My lag metrics that everybody likes to talk about because it's the sexy metric that everybody compares themselves to. The lag metrics are closed units and closed sales volume, but none of that means you're going to make any sort of income in the future. Right. So if we take a look back, and we've explained this in, over the last couple months, is when you compare, August, September, October, what am I really looking at? I'm looking at the lead metrics because they're indicators of where the business is going. And if you really look at it, listings taken units was up in August, September, October. And then what you can see here is the correlative effect of future income, right? So contracts written units was up 29%. And you can see here how October, oh my gosh, closed units were up 29%. Then let's take it October. If we take a look at October, contracts written was up 31%, listings taken units was up 1%. How did it show up in November? What showed up in November was this. The business was up 22% in closed units in the month of November. Now, notice a little bit of a trend, right? So contracts written units up in September and October were building, then November declined. It was up positive, up 21%, but it declined versus what the trend was telling us. What happened in December? It was up 25%. Again, still strong numbers, but you're starting to see here is the decline in contracts written units and then how it impacts future months. So here in the month of January, again, seeing the decline on contracts written units being up only 20%. And then what happened in January, the industry was up 5% on closed units. Again, 5% is positive, but it's not the same trends that we saw last August all the way through December. So here's my caveat to you. right, guys? And this is where I need you to be paying attention and really focusing in on your lead generation and lead activity metrics. Here's what's concerning to me. Listings taken units in the month of January down 4%. Contracts written units was up only 9% after having an incredible run of up anywhere from 20 to 30%. Okay, what led to February? February closed units were up 2%. Up is an up number, but it's not nearly what we saw last fall. And now here's what you need to pay attention to. Listings taken units in the month of February was down 34% across the industry, right? Contracts written units down 12%. It's the first time we saw a down number in forever. What's concerning to me is how this is going to then impact or show up in the months of April and May. Okay, so you really need to be doubling down on your efforts, because what I foresee here is because of the lack of inventory that the market could get soft here. And when I say the market could get soft, I'm trying to protect you and your families and your incomes, and making sure that you're doing everything you can to source every single piece of business that you can. So seeing this is concerning to me, that contracts written units were down 12%. And again, I'm looking ahead here because this is what's going to show up in all of our businesses in April and May, potentially June and July, seeing some soft numbers potentially creeping up. But again, as I always say, 1 month is an anomaly, 2 months is a trend. So next up, what I want to also do is give you historical perspective. And what I mean by that is, we're going to see some numbers here coming up that if we look at where we were in April of 2020, May of 2020, and June of 2020, closed units were down 12%, 28%, and 16% over the next 3 months that we're about to head into. And what I don't want you to get caught in is you're going to start to see some incredible growth trends, because the hurdle comps are very, very low. You don't pay attention to those numbers in terms of when, if we see April up 20 or 30%, or we see May up 20 or 30%, don't pay attention to that, and don't rest on your laurels thinking that this is what the market of the moment that we are in. Because here's what you also need to be paying attention to. The hurdle comps in the back half of the year are ridiculous. They're ridiculous. Up 24% in the month of September, up 29% in the month of October. So the reason why I'm bringing these historical trends to you, looking back from April of 2020 to October of 2020, is my challenge to you is don't rest on your laurels, because in the next 3 months, the news media and the outlets are going to be talking about how good the market is in these months, but it's deceiving because no one's going to talk about the history of what happened last spring. And then all of a sudden you're going to hear next fall that there's going to be major headwinds to the industry, and it's completely deceiving. What we're going to have to do is blend all these months together to look at a true context as to what the industry is looking like. But again, the reason why I give you this historical context is everybody thinks the business right now is hunky-dory. And if anything, I would be doubling down on your efforts, because I think it's going to get a little bit harder before it gets easier, for lack of a better term. So something to pay attention to. As it relates here to the language of real estate report, here's the year-to-date trends specifically for the what I'm calling the KW Milwaukee group here in moving forward. So this is inclusive of the North Shore group as well as Tosa, Elm Grove, Brookfield. You can see here closed units for this group up 40% year to date. I mean, people are having incredible success. And listings taken units, it's down 5% for the group so far year to date. But when you consider the market is down 23% year to date, I would take that as a win. Again, anything outpacing the market average is a win in my book. So you can see that here. And as a reminder, this is a true apples to apples comparison. So if Joe Smith joins us from XYZ Brokerage Realty and his business is down 20%, we inherit that because your historical volume follows your license when we track this data. Next up here from a Lake Country perspective, guys, again, really incredible healthy growth. There are a lot of people doing a lot of great things in the Lake Country marketplace. Lake Country so far closed units up 131%, contracts written up 51% so far year to date. Listings taken units, again, down 15%, but again, it's beating the market average down 23%. So net, very positive momentum in both North Shore and Lake Country trends. When you see here, as it relates to how are the brokerages across southeastern Wisconsin doing, again, guys, as a reminder, I pulled this for everybody so that you can see again across the top I don't know, 10 to 12 brokerage in southeastern Wisconsin. And what I did is for your perspective, in case you're competing against someone in these, is I gave you the days on market comparison analysis, their average price point, and where they are year to date. So Shore West up 7% with 37 days on market. KW leading the pack with one of the lowest days on market with one of the highest average price points, and the business is up across all KW locations, all KW agents up 29%. You can see here from a RE/MAX perspective, they're flat. First Weber's down 6.4%, Coldwell Banker up 3.5%, Realty Execs, and then you can see rounding out the final four, rounding out the top 10 or so across southeastern Wisconsin. And then here's a rolling 12-month trend analysis by office location on closed dollar volume. The group up in Germantown, KW Prestige, having, again, continuing their incredible trends. Lake Country growing at an incredible clip, now cracking the top 10 offices in all of southeastern Wisconsin. Southwest maintaining their spot at number 2, up 21%. And then the KW North Shore office specifically up 37%, really continuing to see incredible upward mobility and trajectory across everything that you guys are doing. And this is indicative of your guys' business, because KW is just a collective of your efforts. So guys, again, congrats to you guys. Couple other things as it relates to February. When we look at gross commission incomes in across all of Milwaukee, all locations, all KW agents, in the month of February, we paid out $2.4 million in gross commission incomes. This is a 61% increase over February of 2020. Agents in this company made 61% more income this year versus last year. Incredible stuff. And as it relates to profit share, which will be coming out towards the end of this week, in the month of February, associates at KW Milwaukee are going to be receiving payments in a total of $44,000 in the month of February. This is a 71% increase in profit share payments versus February of 2020. If you aren't paying attention to the passive income opportunity via profit share, you are missing out, because there is massive money being paid out to agents who are taking advantage of a completely passive income stream. Cool. All right, that is a ton of information. Now, what I tell you with that is, again, as we go back, and I go back to my theme for today is don't rest on your laurels. Just because people are making incredible incomes in February of 2020 and profit share seems to me remaining extremely strong, I think it's deceiving. And I think headwinds are coming here in the spring, and we need to be battening down the hatches. And what I mean by that is batten down the hatches for your personal finances, your business finances, to protect yourselves as we head into a spring market that will be unlike anything we've experienced so far. And so I just making sure that people are paying attention and they're not, coasting. Don't coast into the spring. Now is the time to double down on your efforts. All right. So we talked a ton about lead metrics, and we talked a ton about focusing on future business, lead activities to ensure your success. Guys, I want to recap where people are at so far year to date, and we're going to fly through this like the Kentucky Derby, because again, people are having massive success, but it's only for the second month of the year. So what I would challenge you is if you're on the leaderboard this month, your challenge is to stay on the leaderboard for the rest of the year, knowing what's upcoming. So $1 Million Month Club, couple people to shout out. Connie Cummings, I see you, sister. Congrats. Nancy Meeks and Sarah Joe, congrats in a transition. Again, I say, whose business needs to go down when you're in the middle of a transition, right? Nancy and Sarah Joe moved in the middle of March. They're on the $1 Million Month Club. Congrats. Lane Nygren, congrats. Plooster Property Group continuing to kill it. Team Trimble, Andrews and Koenig, Midcoast Realty Group, Ryan Imperial coming on strong. Tyler Stanley had such a good month. His name had to be split up over 2 lines. All right, here we go. Lake Country Crew. Deej, what do we got coming for the month of February?
Good morning, everybody. I just want to shout out a couple of these folks. You've heard these names already. Connie Cummings at 1.6 million, Lane Nygren at 1.1, and Natasha Jambreck showing up at 635,000. Congratulations. Year to date, Connie Cummings is 2.2 million. So we'll fill that in for you. John Lorenz is 1.9 million, and there's Natasha again at 1.4 million. Units, you control your units, you guys. 8 for John Lorenz, 6 for Connie, and 3 for Natasha. Let's go to teams. Again, heard these names. 1.1 Team Trimble for February. Congratulations. Gallagher Lake Country 630, and Pluster Property Group at 622. Year to date, Gallagher Lake Country 8.8 million still, wow. Pluster Property Group 1.8 and Team Trimble at 1.14. Units 9.6 for Gallagher Lake Country and 3 for Team Trimble. And I know we're gonna roll into some other awards here, but I want to give a quick shout out here to the man sitting in my corner screen, Charlie Stelle. It's not every day that you get to hear from two different economists one day after the other. The information that you guys just got, if you sat on the WRA and you heard from Charlie, shout out. All of the people who've done amazing in awards are using the information that we just got, and Charlie breaks it down in a way that I didn't hear yesterday, and I sat on the same presentation. So thank you, Charlie, for sharing the information in a way that these guys can use and grow their business.
Hey, it's my job to make it digestible. So thank you for the shout out. All right, here we go. Wrapping it up. February individual volume for individual agents across North Shore and Teb. Peter G coming in hot at a fresh 2 mil in the month of February. Ryan Imperial and Kyle Clemens rounding out the top 3 at 1.2, right? Here we go. February team volume. Falk Groove and Gallagher had an absolutely explosive month of February at 11.5. JSG coming in at 6.2. And Houseworks Collective Pass and Stelle Realty Group for the top 3 spots. Congrats to Chuck Hutch, Jonathan Newby, and the squad at Houseworks Collective on a great month of February. Then here, again, the market gives you volume. Agents control their units, right? Market gives you volume. Agents control their units. Big shout out to Brian Schweppe leading the way for individual agents with 9 closed units so far year to date. Again, through the first 2 months of the year. Julie Bulgren, I see you down there at 4 closed units. Congrats. And then here you can see individual agent volume so far year to date. Peter G, congrats at 3.2. Tyler Stanley at number 2 at 2.7. Brian Schweppe at 2.4 with Sophia Berry clipping at his heels. Again, so far for 2 months in the month of so far year to date, 2 months through February. And then lastly, team units. Again, market gives you volume, agents control their units. JSG leading the group with 43 closed units so far year to date, with Falk Groove and Gallagher at 35, Stelle Realty Group at 17, and then Houseworks Collective, baby, I see you right there at 14, and that collective of Kristen Cole Network led by KG, really rounding out the top 5. Guys, people are nipping at the heels in Midcoast Realty. I see you. It'll be a battle right now. We'll see where March comes in as people are starting to close and the spring market's starting to ramp up. And then here you can see year-to-date team volumes again through the first 2 months of the year of February. Falk Groove and Gallagher leading the way at 20 mil. Jay Schmidt Group at 15.2, and then a large competing group really from Houseworks, Double Bolt, Desty's, On Point, A Key Home, Dietrich Meeks, Midcoast Realty, all fighting it out in that top 10. So guys, congrats to the first 2 months of the year. All right, last up, I'm going to finish you with this. Guys, what's the market telling us right now? What is the market of the moment that we are in? Here's what you know. Showing time activity continues to remain strong. It's going up, 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 right? That's a positive stuff. Sales absorption, again, as I've talked about every single week, it's peaking, it's continuing. Look at these, the trend lines, it's going up. When we go on the units under contract, it's going up. It's all stuff, right? Spring market is popping right now. We have to take advantage of it. Again, new inventory is the one thing that is slow. The growth of new listings is slower than the growth of units that are going under contract and the sales absorption rate. So this is my one cautionary tale. And if anything holds us back in the spring, and I know I was a little bit more cautionary this time around the future of where we're headed in the spring, it's this number that is the most concerning, and its impact on total inventory, knowing how fast units are moving through the system. So guys, a ton of data, a ton of information. My job is to make it digestible for you to be able to utilize it and leverage it for you and your clients. Congrats, guys. North Shore or Lake Country Group, I'll let you jump off for the Lake Country meetup. North Shore crew, I will switch over to new listings and buyer needs. Guys, have a great day.